tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up being a very big TikTok influencer when it comes to obesity and medications.
Come on, Chase, tell us.
Well, that happened by random chance. I'll be honest. So yeah, I'm Chase, by the way. I go by Bourbon RX, and I got on TikTok as a hobby, essentially, just like everyone else, just aimlessly scrolling, And then I was in the whiskey bourbon world at one point, and just kind of got over that. I did it during the pandemic, and I thought, what am I passionate about? What do I want to make a difference? And my thoughts were always to represent communities that weren't served well. So whether it be people with obesity, women in medicine, people of color, LGBTQ. And I was like, well, let's just break those topics down. And of course, the first one I thought of was obesity and how people are not treated fairly. And there's a weight bias and fat phobia in medicine. So I thought, hey, let's talk about it. And that's where let's talk about it came from while I was just sitting in my house aimlessly thinking. So, but yeah, I'm a nurse practitioner, actually. I'm board certified. This is going to be a lot of words. Adult gerontology, primary care, nurse practitioner. Ooh. Fancy words for I see 13 and above, and I have specialization in 65 and above. Wow. Wow. So yeah. And, but yeah, I mean, that's really, and then I just started talking about things from my perspective, using the education I have and the knowledge I have, but also from a relatable standpoint, because
that's relatable.
I was raised on a farm in Tennessee. Like I'm no better than anybody else. So I kind of wanted to bring that. I wanted to bring that to TikTok. Not that there's anything wrong with wearing a suit and coat and all that stuff, but I just thought the way you see me on TikTok is the way I practice medicine. Like I connect and do all that. And I just thought there was a space that was missing for a normal person. Just so happens to have a degree. Yeah. But I want to talk
highly
about
educated. Highly.
But I want to, connect and talk to people and make it where, you feel like you can watch it and be like, that's me. I get those words. That makes sense. So that's kind of where everything came from. Yeah. So, a little bit more like my background. So I graduated from Vanderbilt University in Nashville. Okay. So we saw outside the box cases. The worst of the worst or the weird of the weird. And I moved to a town. I won't say it's small town, rural. It's like 65,000 people, but there are no obesity specialists in my town. Zero. So my goal was, when I started to practice, was bring forward thinking and new age treatments and medicine to a small town. Bring Vanderbilt to Owensboro, and so be innovative, and so I think that's where my passion for all these topics came from. I talk a lot about GLP1s, but my goal was to learn things that people didn't know in my town. Yeah, that people didn't know. And I think Kat said earlier, the more millennial docs and younger, and I don't want to be ageist. Don't take this as ageist, but my goal is to be super progressive. And I think, and TikTok has given me a chance. It's been a blessing to bring that to people, to masses that not everyone you see is going to judge you. Not everyone you see is going to say you're overweight. So just, change that and all your health problems go away. So totally. Yeah. I mean, it's been super cool. It's been super.
To your point, I mean, you already mentioned there's already kind of, and I think we've seen sort of a deficit of, obesity specialists, or even not even specialists, but maybe even just doctors are comfortable with knowing about obesity, understanding that it's a chronic disease, understanding how it needs to be treated, that it's going to continue to reoccur, likely if you don't. And I think that that's why a lot of us have had a hard time being able to get any help. Like, why do you think that is? What's going on with like the medical system that they're not taking the time to educate around obesity, or maybe traditionally they haven't and they are now? I don't know, but could you give us some insight there?
That's deep. I think.
Sorry.
No, you're good. No, I love it. I think it's just the medical establishment. I think it's the medical establishment. I think that's the way we were. Some education is. I remember in my training, like, I was not really taught about obesity, to be 100% honest. Like chronic treatment of it. We were taught, like, if you're obese, you're going to have a heart attack and have diabetes. Like, that's it. And so when you get in front of a patient, you just harp on that like crazy. And when, this is recognized by multiple medical associations, WHO, AMA, that obesity is a chronic disease. And I think, like I said, being, more progressive and trying to be innovative, I studied it when I got out. I did not learn that. I did not learn that at school. I did not.
Yeah.
And because, and I say it on my lives, like, I'm not an obesity specialist because there's board certifications, but GPs or primary cares, like, we have to learn when we get home.
Right.
We do. And, there's journals, and you search it out on Google Scholar, you look up all these things, up to date, all these apps we use. And I decided to learn about it myself and looked up the statistics and looked up how many people fail on calories in, calories out. And, and you learn that there's so much to this disease. It's, because a lot of GPs will look at diabetes or congestive heart failure, and they're so complex. And they look at obesity and they're like, you should just eat better. Like, it's not it, it's not it. So I just took the time, and like I said, I think it's the medical establishment. I think that's what it is. And this is why I appreciate what you're doing with this podcast, because you guys have voices. We have voices. The only way to make change is to be loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here we are, being loud.
That is definitely the goal.
And I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Food has definitely been a very dominant voice in my head. That's not the main focus anymore. Dieting, exercising, and adding GLP1s through Row is a game changer. I have such a sense of mental freedom since I started with Row. Food no longer controls my thoughts. Family time used to revolve around food, and now it revolves around what we're going to go do together.
You explain, so the pains of pre-authorization, and why are these insurance companies requiring that? Well, that seems obvious, but I just want to hear from you.
No,
I would say CYA, but yeah.
It's a fantastic question. So prior authorizations, obviously, they are essentially your medical provider providing documentation that says that medication is medically necessary for you. That's what it is. And why are they requiring? Because it's so dang expensive. They don't want to pay for it. They just don't. And so they want us to label or outline, rather, why these are, appropriate for you, and you. They are, if I'm being completely transparent, the worst part of my job.
Yeah.
But it is a necessary evil, because at the end of the day, we take an oath to serve patients, do no harm, help, and at the end of the day, you pay us with co-pays and things like that, and insurance, and just like a plumber, electrician, or whoever you want to name, they're required to finish the job.
Yeah.
They don't come in and say, hey, you need a light bulb changed or whatever, and then just walk out. They change the single light bulb, or they change the light fixture, and that's Yeah, I mean, it's a necessary evil, but
Right.
it happens.
See-
We have to do it.
Okay, so it's about basically because the drugs right now are so expensive.
Absolutely.
So
Almost
do you see? You
sorry, I was
go
going to
ahead?
say almost any branded medication,
Yeah.
you're going to need one. Almost any.
Really?
Okay.
Any.
Mm.
Oh,
Wow.
so that puts things into perspective then. So it makes it feel not what is it? Not so singular, not so
Yeah.
isolated. You know, it's not just us. There's other drugs. Other people are going through the same issues, right?
1000%.
But do you see? I know there's been talks of generics, but is that coming down the pipeline? Do you see generics coming anytime soon or later?
As far as GLP-1 meds?
Yes, yeah, GLP-1.
Liraglutide or Saxenda. I mean, the patent's pretty much up on that. I think
Okay.
that'll be the first one. Predominantly with patents, they're roughly 10 years from when they start, like R&D and all those things. Now they get expanded by anywhere from 4 months to a year every time they get a new indication.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
So
like if they get approved for weight loss, it's extended a year from there, or
bingo.
10 years from there. Oh my
Bingo.
gosh.
Oh.
Bingo.
Look.
Which
And-
is why they're doing this. Because they have Ozempic and they're like, oh, let's rebrand it and call it Wegovy, even though it's the exact same medication because the indication is for obesity. OMG.
They got years. Yeah. So like take a medication
Oh
like
my
Wegovy's perfect. But like say
Mm.
Farxiga, the diabetic medication. So it comes out for diabetes. They got indication for chronic kidney disease. They got indication for congestive heart failure. Like all these indications.
Wow.
So it just boom, 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 bumps it back because every time you're like inventing a new drug, essentially, not really, but
It's the same thing. Yeah.
yes. So when Mounjaro hits that FDA, yeah, they get more. They get
Wow.
more. Mm.
Wow. I meant to ask, you had a video recently kind of on this topic where you were like, hey, you know how you get upset with your insurance companies and your policies and everything about
Right.
not covering these medications? Your companies are the ones that are deciding. How
Yeah.
much do you know about that? Because I am super
That's
curious. Like,
And I use
Yeah.
that too. Just FYI,
I
I
know.
used that with a friend of mine. I was like, tell your
Yeah.
boss. No, not
That's
Yeah.
right.
So the majority of the time, okay, so I was corrected on TikTok, which I do get corrected from time to time. So it's if your company has 150 employees or more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a larger company, when they sit down, so there's insurance brokers. So you got your insurance company, so Blue Cross Blue Shield, broker, employer, and so the brokers are trying to sell these plans.
Yeah.
And they'll sell them a plan and they'll say, well, if you cover weight loss medications or anti-obesity medications, it's going to raise your cost by arbitrary number, $10,000 a year. What do you want to do? And if they choose no, you then have a medication carve out. And back to the PAs, when I do these PAs, so I do a PA, I do appeal, peer-to-peer. That's it. I got 4 shots to swing at these meds.
Right.
And if there's a anti-obesity medication carve out, none of those matter. But back to your question, yeah, if you work for a larger-ish company, 150 employees or more, they can choose to not cover it.
Wow.
And you're done. You're
What
done.
about for like
there's no way.
diabetes, like other chronic diseases? Can they still choose not to cover certain medications the same way? They cannot. They can't choose that.
There's your weight
Oh.
bias.
Gee.
To my knowledge, now I'm not
Yeah.
an insurance expert, but to my knowledge, I have never seen so in Owensboro we have a big like industrial, there's lots of factories and like we have like ragu and steel plants and all these things. I have never seen a commercial insurance deny Ozempic or Trulicity for a diabetic. I've never been like, it's not on the plan. Like I've never seen that.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
So
Do you see that like maybe a little bit of a bubble of hope, a trend where it's starting to make its little peeps?
I do.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm very optimistic. Actually, I'm very optimistic. Because I think a lot of people are waking up to what this is and the future implications if like preventative health versus reactionary health.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal, and like actually the federal government and everybody there's a lot of things about rehospitalizations with congestive heart failure and all these things. Like I think it happened during the Obama era. I think that's starting to kind of hone in to we need to save money down the road and not now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think they're starting to bite. Like I think Wegovy and Saxenda are kind of my thermometer for insurance coverage. And Wegovy and Saxenda is improving each year, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I always have a question for Bourbon RX because
Hit me.
It is like rapid fire, but there's controversy around GLP-1 medications being used to like quote unquote off label to treat obesity and metabolic disorders. Yeah. And can you share your take and why you believe people feel the way that they do about this, even though, like, for instance, Mounjaro is being effective in treating so many different medical conditions? Why is that such an issue?
So let's clarify. Do you think, are you asking about the media, random people on TikTok, or other medical providers?
All of those things. One by one.
This is good. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe, you know what? How about other medical professionals?
Okay. Yeah. No, I can go with that. Just because they're not progressive. At the end of the day, okay, let's think about it. Like in my practice, I use things off label all the time. Metformin, Topamax, Viagra, all these things, lisinopril, Farxiga. I mean, all these medications, we use them off label all the time. Gabapentin. Gabapentin's a massive one that's used off label. So if just to like very generally, it's stigma. It's weight biased and weight stigma, or weight biased, I think would be the best terminology. It's weight biased that these providers think, well, it's FDA approved for that. Well,
yeah.
Pardon my French, but you didn't give a shit when you wrote the other stuff.
Yeah.
So why do we care now?
Yeah.
Right.
And I get sometimes they don't want to, providers don't want to write it because it's a lot of legwork if it's not FDA approved to do the PAs and do all these things. But at the end of the day, we write meds off label all the time. And what's interesting, so I always try to practice evidence-based practice. That's what I go by. Okay. You look at the evidence statistically, Ozempic Wegovy, 16% weight loss. Mounjaro, 21.5 or 22%. Whoa, like we're fixing a problem. I don't care if the FDA says you can do this because the FDA doesn't control me.
Yeah.
But like statistically and from evidence-based practice, it's there. Yeah. So to answer your question, I think it's a little weight biased. I think it's again, I don't want to be ageist. I don't want to do that, but I do think it's I think it's an old school mindset versus a new school mindset.
That's okay.
I have to agree.
In medical providers, that's personally what I think, because as you guys talked about when, before I jumped on, you said like death to diet culture.
Death to diet culture.
Yeah.
That is the most 1990s. Let's go on the Atkins. Let's do the things, all those diets and like, and medical providers are so stuck.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. I see it with congestive heart failure meds. I see it with diabetes meds. I see it with, and so now it's just going to obesity, but it's just a little more rigid than most, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. That makes complete sense. But if we add another layer to that, why do you think, especially the diabetic community, feels so not all, but some members of the diabetic community are so pitted against the obesity community.
That's an interesting
in terms
one.
of these medications.
That's an interesting one. I see the comments all the time.
Yeah.
I haven't
And
really
we
think
do
about
want your perspective. Like don't like
Yeah.
we're getting it from all other professionals on here too. Like it's okay. Like tell us what you think.
Whew.
Ooh, look, brace.
I gotta take a deep. I gotta take a. I need a drink on that one. I don't really know. Okay, actually, I do know. I think it's all driven by the media, personally, because any of us on TikTok have seen Jillian Michaels. We've seen what was it? Good Morning America.
Bethany Frankel.
Bethany, is that skinny? Is that skinny girl?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm about to do a video on that.
Yeah.
Skinny girl. We've got Good Morning America. It was done on, and all these things. And so, I think the media has fueled that because it's clickbait. Because people love it. People love chaos. They don't love.
People love a villain.
Yeah, well, they love chaos. They don't love a little puppy. They love the hurricane. You know, like that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little media driven, and so I don't think no one would ever think about this if it wasn't on Good Morning America, if it wasn't on Jillian Michaels. You know, and from not even a medical provider, from a human standpoint, I get, like, if you go to the pharmacy and you can't get your medicine, you want to blame somebody, because you're pissed, and then you get online and you're like, why is my Ozempic out? And then boom, it's because they're taking it for weight loss. That pops up on Yahoo News.
Yeah,
that's why they're pissed.
Yeah,
you know. And at the end of the day, I made a video on it the other day. The fact is, it's the pharmaceutical companies not making enough, because there's an Adderall shortage, there's a Tamiflu shortage, there's all these crazy shortages. Yeah. It has nothing to do with obesity. It's just, I think it's sensationalism in the media.
Yeah, for sure.
Sensationalism.
Okay.
For sure.
Personally.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Oh, that's a good
20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise. That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro.
When it comes to compounds, they can be good and they can be bad. I think we live in a black and white society where they think everything's bad or everything's good. There are several compound pharmacies that are awful, because they're doing research grade products like tirzepatide and semaglutide, tirzepatide, or liraglutide, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you are considering compounds, and listen to this if you're listening, ask that provider. I don't care if it's one off TikTok or one you Googled. What pharmacy do you get your compounds from?
Yeah.
Okay. And so there's like literally like 75 in the United States, probably more, but like 75 that I know of. And some of these pharmacies have what's called PCAB certifications, PCAB, and other certifications. They are monitored by the FDA. So they come in and they look at sterility, efficacy, and sustainability, I think. And if they have these PCAB certifications, PCAB, you can be assured that the FDA is watching to say, are you using research grade products? They won't let them do it. Is your ventilation appropriate? Do they like randomly test samples to make sure their stuff is good? But there's some that you can find on Google. Like I found one, it actually popped up on my Facebook, and it was like, if you read the fine print, it was like research grade, not used for human consumption.
Ruh-roh.
Don't do that shit. Don't do that shit.
Don't do that
Don't
shit.
do that shit.
Yeah.
Don't do that shit. There's also like in my comments, I see these people that get sent semaglutide salts and they mix them up at their house and inject them.
No.
Oh gosh.
Again, I say, don't do that shit.
Don't do shit.
Don't do that shit.
Like old day apothecary, or back in the day apothecaries.
Yeah, no
Like,
kidding. But
wow.
like, but yeah, so like you can get actual recognized pharmacies that are have FDA oversight.
Okay.
No compound you ever get will be FDA approved. I don't care if it's testosterone, estrogen, levothyroxine, a foot cream for your plantar fasciitis. It is not FDA approved.
Yeah.
But it can be FDA monitored. Key.
Monitor.
So like, am I against compounds? Absolutely not. I think they serve their purpose for accessibility and affordability in times of shortage. But I just want, again, everybody listening, like, do your due diligence, find a good reputable pharmacy, and do not be scared to ask that provider that's prescribing it to you, what pharmacy do you use and what certifications do they have?
That's right.
Boom.
That goes back to advocacy and even advocating for yourself, which we've talked about quite a bit.
10 of 10.
So yeah,
10 of
like
10.
you have to be like, you know, especially if you're spending money with them, you should know what you're putting in your body.
Absolutely. Especially if you're injecting it. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Well,
Awesome. We're about at an hour. Does anybody have any more questions, or we feel good wrapping up?
well, really quick, Bourbon
Go
RX.
for whatever. Yeah.
You did a post about it. What are your thoughts on the statement that Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk and other drug makers put out about compounds?
Being okay. Yeah. Saying like they they're patented and can't get it from anywhere else. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people that are not educated on laws. 503A, 503A, 503B allows compounding pharmacies to make products in times of FDA shortage, so the supply is not interrupted for patient treatment.
Okay.
That's how they get around that. And, you know, people be like, oh, do they add B12 to change the molecule? Yeah, a lot of them do. Because it's very specific. It's you know, there's laws and lawyers and all these things that come into play. But 503A, 503B, those are what these FDA compliant pharmacies go by. So what's going to happen if these shortages come off the FDA list that everybody can Google? The legitimate pharmacies will stop selling that. They'll stop. They usually have. So a lot of these pharmacies have 3 to 4 months already done. So when those come off, you have 3 to 4 months for compounds, and then it's gone.
Wow.
It's gone. And then if you see someone that is like, I'll give you a year supply after FDA is gone, don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah. Okay. The thing is, people really need to, like, I am a proponent of compounds because I think they're great, but you have to be safe. You have to be knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Advocate for yourself. You know.
That's awesome.